Classic Talk.
Speaking of can do, what about Pedro Ped? What are you going to be doing? Because you've, like we said before, within the last 4 years, you've gone from, obviously you've still got the day job, presumably.
I've been doing it today.
And you've got all this YouTube stuff to fit around it, and you've been filming this show as well over the last year. Is that opening some more doors for you? Is it something you might like to do more of?
It's been a really interesting journey because, as I said, I started YouTube as a hobby, and it got to a point about 3 years ago where I was a director and part owner of I'm a telecoms trainer by profession. I've done that for 20 years. And that's I guess the presenting skills and stuff, that's where I've kind of built that up from. So I went freelance as a trainer 3 years ago to be able to concentrate more on YouTube. But my ultimate goal is I'd love to do more TV work. I did some presenting at Goodwood for the last 2 Festival of Speeds in the Future Lab for Goodwood TV. And obviously Vintage Voltage was just an amazing experience to be involved in that. And we are really hoping and keeping our fingers crossed that we might get Series 2. So that would be amazing if that were to happen. But at the moment, YouTube is not at a level where I could just do YouTube financially. I need to do those other elements of my business to pay the mortgage. But I only probably do my training job maybe 5 days a month, and then the rest of the time I'm out driving cars for YouTube. So
yeah, because I know we've got 71,000 subscribers at the moment.
I have indeed, yes.
You've done 3 videos just in the last week, or at least those have gone live in the last week.
I do 3 a week. Yeah, 3 videos a week.
Yeah.
During lockdown, stupidly, as we entered lockdown, I made the commitment of doing a video every day and doing a daily vlog, because I thought lockdown would last maybe 3 weeks. And I did a video every day for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind, as an automotive YouTuber, I wasn't actually able to drive out anywhere. So I had to be very creative.
Same with us as well. I mean, I've seen quite a few of them with you walking your dogs. I've learned a lot about walking.
Well. Exactly. But 3 videos a week. So that's 2 car reviews, and then tonight's video on a Wednesday, I do an update, which doesn't take long to film. It's just a 5-minute thing. But the main videos Monday and Friday are car reviews now. So.
I'm going to say it's not so much the filming as well, it's the editing and then the waiting for the upload as well. That takes a lot of time. So 3 a week is impressive.
It is, yeah. I mean, you guys know making content's hard, right? So I did, last Friday's film was the Porsche 718 Spider. Well, I filmed with that for 2 days, and the edit was 10 hours for a 20-minute film. So, and but I love it. I can't complain because I get to drive some of the best cars out there, and I love when a video drops. I love hearing the response from people in the comments, and it's a very, very rewarding thing to do. And hopefully I can carry on getting access to great cars, and I'd love to do a bit more TV presenting or presenting on on social channels for other brands. That would be amazing, and just see where it goes. Really, it's so far. It's some of the if you speak to any YouTuber, unless you're talking to one of the really, really big ones, but I guess even for those guys, most of the time it's about the experiences that YouTube gives you. So because of YouTube, I've driven up the hill at Festival of Speed a number of times now, and I never thought I'd ever get to do that. And to do that is, when you're in when I drove the Classic Alpha, you're in the assembly area, and you're talking to the drivers around you, people like Jochen Mass and Martin Brundle and Nick Mason, and Nick Mason was behind me in his 250 GTO, and it was an amazing experience, and YouTube did that for me. So it's good fun. It's good fun. So, and I get to meet guys like you online. But at the moment, for any creator, be that online with a platform like YouTube or working in the industry, in the TV industry, it's super hard times because no one's making anything. And it's really difficult. And the one thing I didn't realize until I got into working with the TV show was one, how many people you need to make a TV show, and the fact that most of them are working freelance and work on lots of other projects. So you learn so much from everybody. The guys that made Vintage Voltage were all ex-Top Gear, Fifth Gear, wheeler dealers, They were just so experienced, and I learned masses from them. It was a real eye opener. I think that first day you stand on set and someone says action, you're like, ooh, okay, I've got to start now. But
yeah, and a friend of mine who we go back 30 years. He used to edit Top Gear, and a guy called Mark Talbot Butler, my namesake. And I was talking to him a few years ago, and I hadn't seen him for years. And he'd been doing Top Gear, done quite a bit of the Jeremy Clarkson years of Top Gear. And I was saying to him, what are you driving at the moment? What do you get any inspiration from the show? He says, I haven't got a car. So what do you mean you've not got a car? I don't drive. But you're on Top Gear. He says, yeah. He said, all I do is I go into the edit suite and I make movies. He said, that's it. I get to choose my own music. I get to choose how it works with the images. So certainly with what you say about the creative aspect of it, people seem to forget about how much creativity goes into these shows and the backgrounds of these people that are involved.
Oh, when you work with a really good editor and you watch how they work, it's just, I mean, my weak point is my editing, and I'd love to be good at editing. I'm not bad, but I'm not a top-rate editor at all. But you just you watch how they take all the rushes and they stick it to some amazing music, and they do, and what comes out, the first time I saw one of the first episodes of Vintage Voltage and saw the first edit, it was like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'd watch one of my films on YouTube and think, yeah, that's all right. And then you think, wow, there's a YouTube video, and then unless you ignore people like Carfection because they're amazing, but then you watch something on telly and you're like, wow, okay, that's
yeah. I know one of the shows I work on is all scripted, and I have to make it sound hopefully like it's kind of my own opinion most of the time, although sometimes I disagree with it. But on Vintage Voltage, for example, did you have someone that worked on the story and how the sequence of the different events and things taking place went?
Yeah.
And
So when we first met to plan the show, first thing was we planned what the cars were going to be, and we kind of had a pretty much a time frame for how they were going to go through the workshop. Because the other thing I didn't mention before is it was all filmed in parallel. So we didn't film one car and then go on to the next one. We filmed everything in the workshop, and then the edit team sewed it all together into each episode, which was a mammoth task. But for each car, right at the beginning, we kind of worked out what the processes we were going to highlight in the show. So, for the BMW, it was right. Well, we're going to go to a chroming factory and look at the chroming. We're going to go to the interior trim company. For the Land Rover, it was about the gear. So we had two what were called Pedro processes, but two things that we would highlight. And then they had a film crew at the garage 5 days a week for a year filming, or for seven or 8 months. And then they basically then try and follow the car, make sure they got the key processes that we want, and then they sew that into the show. And obviously that included the handover at the beginning and handover at the end with me, and then link pieces and stuff with members of the team. So, but there was no script as such. It was planned and storyboarded, but there was no script.
I suppose that's how you work, and I suppose how Tom's probably more accomplished writer than I am, but I suppose how you write as well is that sense of trying to work out and plan before. And I think I saw on one of your YouTube pieces recently you were talking about how much planning goes into one of your road tests.
Yeah, I don't script because my style is very much experiential and what the car feels like. But what I will do is think, okay, for that car, this is the story I want to tell, and this is roughly what the video is going to look like. Am I going to start the intro outside my house, or is it going to be at the garage where I pick it up? What road am I going to go on? Is there some kind of story? And sometimes I'll pitch a story to a brand to get access to a car. So, and that can be sometimes successful, sometimes not. But I think brands quite like you trying to do something a bit different, not just a standard. If you want to, there's so many normal car reviews out there. I'll try and mix mine up with a little bit of something else as well. But yeah, I don't. The problem with scripting is you have to remember it.
Very true.
Unless you've got an auto cue running, which in my day job I do lots of studio stuff in telecoms, and that is all auto cued and all to camera, and that's written by, like you're saying, Andy, written by somebody else, and you have to make it your own. But I can't do that on YouTube. It needs to be more free flowing, I think.
Yeah, I think what I was thinking was, in terms of what you've said, is you work out what you want to cover and you structure it so that you get those things into that, and you plan ahead, and you, like you said, thinking about which road you go on and that kind of stuff.
I mean, I try and do it. It depends how long you've got the car as well. If it's a dealer giving you a car, you've probably got the car for maybe a day, sometimes overnight, but normally no longer than that. If it's a press car from a manufacturer, most press teams will give you the car for a week, which gives you a lot of time to maybe plan a road trip or do a longer kind of experiential type video. Some press teams will only give you a car overnight, but it depends on how long you've got the car as to how what you can do. Sometimes you get the car for an hour and you just have to make do. So I should have been this week is the press drives for the new Alfa Romeo Giulia and Stelvio Quadrifoglio. And I should have been going on Friday, but because I'm doing my day job, I can't go. But looking at the itinerary, I'd have had an hour in each car. So you have to get a wiggle on. And you definitely have to plan what you're going to do.
I was just going to ask, classic of the future. I mean,
of course, yeah. What I was going to actually say on that point is, obviously you're a Mini enthusiast, and the new Mini is now an old Mini in some respects, the early new Mini. Is that now a classic in your eyes?
Some of them are.
Yeah.
So if you were to look at some of the limited edition ones, so the very first new Mini, the Phase 1's one, what's called an R53, the GP version of that, they only made 2,000 of them, and they are mega little things. They've got a little supercharged 1600 engine, and they're beautiful. I would consider that a modern classic, or certainly a classic of the future, because they're quite sought after. They hold their money quite well. In fact, their values have probably gone up. One of my Minis is a Mini Roadster. They didn't make that many of them in the John Cooper Works spec, and I'm very much hoping that might be a modern classic of the future. I wouldn't dare call it a classic now because it looks a bit too modern, but if you look at the cars of the 80s and 90s, so when I was a kid, so I drove, as I said, the 205 GTI I drove recently. I think they are, and I think the scrappage scheme did for so many of that era of car.
Yeah, completely.
That anything that's left of any note that's got a reasonably nice spec. I was with Hendy Performance last week picking up a car, and they had a Ford Capri Brooklands in the showroom. Absolute mint condition. And I definitely call that a classic.
Yeah.
It was a lovely thing. Probably drove awful, but it goes back to your point of saying
exactly.
When I drove that 205 GTI, I was terrified because I'd never driven one and always wanted to drive one. I was terrified it was going to be awful. And actually it wasn't. It was brilliant to drive. But the car, if I could own a classic of my era, if you like, I would absolutely kill for a Mark I Ford Fiesta 1300 Super Sport. Not the XR2, the 1300 Super Sport, because that was always the one I wanted. And but I know it would be rubbish. It would look cool, but I know it would be rubbish. So, it'd be interesting to see what happens. I think, the challenge with classics for me, the ones I really want, I can't afford anymore. I'd love an Austin Healey 3000. I think they are beautiful things. I'd love a classic Mini, but they're just proper money nowadays. Really proper money. A nice classic Cooper S Mini would be on my drive in a heartbeat if I could. In Italian job spec.
Yeah, definitely. You look at old car magazines and you see the adverts for stuff like Minis in the back and the like 300 quid, and you just start weeping, don't you? Thinking, why didn't I just get one then at the time and just keep it?
Well, the
one that really annoyed me, and it's not that many years ago, it must be maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I went to a Breakfast Club meet at Goodwood, and there was a beautiful Ferrari 355 Spider. Beautiful thing. And I thought, whoa, quite fancy one of them. And I went home and looked in Auto Trader, and I found a really, really good one for 35 grand. And didn't buy it. And now they're, they're three figures. They're 100 grand now, or, certainly high up the sort of 60, 70 grand for a good one.
Yeah.
And you think, damn.
It's a decent dent in a mortgage, that, isn't it?
Although my favourite, I've got a friend of mine who's got a 360, and when he bought that, I think he paid £60,000 for it. And at the time, there was a Challenge Stradale in the Ferrari dealership in Egham. Challenge Stradale in there, and it was an extra £10,000. And he didn't buy it because he couldn't quite stretch the budget. And now his 360 is worth about 80, and a Challenge Stradale, what, a couple of hundred grand, probably 300 grand maybe. But the thing that made him weep, there was a Testarossa in there that had been owned by Elton John that they couldn't sell and was up for 40 grand. Where's the crystal ball that tells us what's going to happen with
it? Would be handy, wouldn't it?
It would be amazing. Yeah. You hear all these stories, but it's never me that finds the old, cheapo classic that becomes mega expensive.
And it's never anything by British Leyland, and it's never a 50s British saloon either. So I'm stuffed as well. So
that's like your point or your passion.
Yeah, exactly. So
but I think sometimes it is a bit silly, but the one day I'll find something, and I'd love an Integrale as well. I love the old the Lancia Integrales. They're beautiful. I've got a friend of mine who specialises in those, and I've driven quite a few of those, and they're great things. I keep having to do the lottery maybe.